Okay, well, hello everybody, and welcome to lockdown again. And one of the things that we can do in lockdown is we miss out on all the good stuff like the lectures and the social gatherings and the star parties and so on, unfortunately. But you can actually still, from home, go outside and look up without having to necessarily go anywhere. Now, some of us do live in fairly urban environments, but that doesn't mean that we can't actually see anything. There's quite a lot going on in the sky, so let's just have a little bit of a look at some of the things that are happening. Now, first of all, I'm going to start with our customary look at our sun here, and yet again there is nothing on the sun. There is no activity at all on the sun, no sunspots. There have been a couple. The current stretch, this is as of the 15th of May, the current stretch is 13 days of no sunspots, and if we look at the stats for the year, we're running into 76%. 104 days so far of this year have had no sunspots. That's 76% compared to 77% last year. Now, if you go back 11 years, because this is an 11-year cycle, we got to 73% in 2008 and 71% in 2009. So we might expect that from here onwards it drops fairly sharply. 2010 was 14%, 2011 then we had really nothing until 2016. If that pattern repeats, and all the information about solar cycle 25 does seem to be saying that it's going to be pretty much like solar cycle 24, which was actually quite significantly smaller than solar cycles 22 and 23 before it. But we did still get good auroral activity around about sort of 2013 through 17. We got some quite good auroral activity, and then the minimum started to make its presence known, and there are still possibilities of auroras. There's not so much obviously in the way of exploding sunspots, but there is at this very moment, again this is the 15th of May, a fairly mild coronal hole on the front of the sun facing the Earth, and we expect that probably to arrive around about the 18th, that's Monday. I'm recording this today on Sunday. So we might get something out of that. There are pictures coming in. Now this, you have to go a long way north to get this sort of thing. This was May the 7th in the Northwest Territories of Canada from John David McKinnon. And that's a very spectacular display there, but much, much further north than where we are. This is Venus down at the bottom here, and casting a nice reflection on the water as well. So that's what's happening with the sun and all that sort of thing. Now, we have had some very nice clear evenings recently, and planets are part of this, particularly Venus. Venus there is quite low in the northwest after sunset. You can see Venus, in fact, during the day if you know what you're doing and where to look, but I do always advise a bit of caution with that, and I would always say if you are going to look for Venus with the telescope during the daytime, then at least just add a little bit of safety into that by doing it within the shadow of your house or something like that, because one look at the sun, even briefly, inadvertently through a telescope, will take your eye out. But you can find Venus, and it's showing a beautiful phase at the minute. More about that later. And as from about the 20th of May onwards, it is joined by Mercury. The two of them do a little dance. Mercury comes up around Venus here, and we're getting towards the end of Venus now. Venus is at inferior conjunction on the 3rd of June, and so we'll be losing Venus from the sky, but in the meantime it is looking quite spectacular. And let's have a look. This is the 22nd of May, and I'm looking at Venus here now. That phase is going very, very thin, and Venus is really quite large. So let's look at the stats here. This is a 4.9% phase there, and the apparent diameter is up here somewhere. That is 53 arc seconds there, so just under 1 arc minute. Venus will get to about 1 arc minute before we lose it, and that does mean that people with really good eyesight can actually see that crescent without optical aids. I never have, but my wife has far better eyesight than me actually, and she can see the shape of the crescent. And when I just check with her which direction it's pointing to confirm she's got it right, it is absolutely right. Some people can see that 1 arc second. It's about as good as the eye can resolve. So that's getting thinner and thinner. So that will go completely before the 3rd of June. We'll have lost it by then. It's also this year because now Venus and the Earth are sort of locked into a resonance in their orbits around the Sun, and if you think about this, for every 13 times Venus orbits the Sun, the Earth orbits the Sun 8 times. That's the resonance they're locked into. And that means that from our standpoint, every 8 years, everything comes back to pretty much the same place. So if you cast your mind back to 2012, now I was fogged out for this one, but we had a transit of Venus. And also 8 years previous to that, in 2004, we also had a transit of Venus. This time, we just miss having a transit of Venus. Venus does actually pass just to the north of the Sun, not very much. But it does mean that this won't be one of those occasions when you can catch Venus close to inferior conjunction, which has been done before. Now then, moving on. Mercury enters the fray as well. This is Mercury seen on the 22nd, very close up. Now, Mercury showing a good phase there. That phase is 67%. And I've never actually managed to see a phase on Mercury myself. It's so much further away from us and smaller than Venus that it's actually quite difficult to see even in a modest telescope. But start getting big instruments on Mercury and you can see that sort of shape a lot better. Just to give you an idea of where they are relative to each other, this is Mercury and Venus, and that's on the 22nd of May again, so towards the end of next week, Friday. And they are 1 1/3 degrees apart, 1 degree and 21 arc minutes apart there, so really quite close together, and a pretty sight setting in the northwestern sky. So moving on from there, this is the I was talking about the phases of Venus, and this is a bit of a work in progress I've got going here. I've been lucky enough to get photographs of Venus one way or another from the 30th of March up here, and we can see that phase there. So that starts at, that's 48%. It doesn't look like it, but it is, and an apparent diameter of 25 arc seconds here. And then I've got various other pictures during April, and down here the last one I've got on this sequence is the 13th of May, which is a 13% phase and 48 arc seconds of apparent diameter there. So you can see that as Venus goes around the Sun, it is sort of heading towards the Earth. Then it curves around to go in between us and the Sun on the 3rd of June. So that's the phase of Venus. I'm very much hoping to continue this project with at least a couple more sightings before we lose Venus completely. There's a little mistake or two I've made there. There's a little notch that doesn't belong there. But this is all, each one of these is a layer in Photoshop, and I can go back to that and just correct my little mistake there. Now then, the morning sky for the early birds among us. That's got 3 planets in it. In fact, if you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts, this is set for 4 o'clock on the 20th again. So over to just by the southeast here, you've got Mars coming up before the Sun, and then a little bit further up the ecliptic here, Saturn and Jupiter are putting on a rather spectacular show together. I did see those two the other morning, and I had my Venus scope set up and pointed it quickly through the window at Saturn, and I got a shape on it, but I didn't get enough detail. It was too low, looking through too much hazy air to get any detail, so I just really got an oval shape. and really that setup I've got for Venus doesn't have enough magnification to do Saturn justice, because it's visually a lot smaller. Likewise Jupiter, I could just get a disk of Jupiter, and I could see the 4 Galilean moons, but no more than that. Now then, we're into an interesting time of year for passes of the International Space Station. In that, because of the way the Earth is tilted towards the Sun at this time of year, we get some interesting passes of the ISS, because what are normally the separate group of morning passes and a different group of evening passes, they all sort of merge into one now. So starting here at the 16th of May, so you've got an 0026, an 0202, then a 2338. And what it does mean is that on some nights, like let's say the 18th oh, that doesn't work, there's only 3, but you can see the space station 4 times in a night on some occasions. All very big bright passes as well, magnitude minus 3.6 here, which is about as bright as it gets. Those of you in the south of the island will probably get a little bit brighter and a bit higher, because we don't get more in Northern Ireland. We get no more than about sort of 52 degrees up above the horizon. Down towards Cork, you probably get almost overhead. But then https://heavens-above.com, and you put your location into that, and it will give you the full rundown on that. This is the current sequence through from 16th of May to 29th of May. Both evening and early morning passes in there, tending towards the evening later on in the sequence. So that's the International Space Station. Now then, people are getting excited about comets. And the one that we were very excited about the last time I looked into this is Comet C 2019 Y4 Atlas. And now the bad news on that, was good and bad news. It's up here in between Capella and Murphak there, and it's broken up. Is the bad news. But the not so bad news is it seems to be still alive, in that the various pieces, of which there are at least 2 big ones, are still in orbit around the Sun and still glowing nicely. Last observed magnitude 9.6, so not one of the great comets by any means, but it's still alive. So that's 2019 Y4 Atlas. We have another comet of the Pan-STARRS thing. That's the automated camera on Hawaii, and that scans the sky and picks up these objects. C 2017 T2 Pan-STARRS in Camelopardalis. That's sort of between Ursa Major and Gemini, and which is kind of over this direction. This is actually not far from the region of M81 and 82 at the moment, and that's last observed at magnitude 8.6. So probably worth a look, but not the best. But this is the one that people are really talking about now. Comet C 2020 F8 Swan. Very low in the sky at the moment, getting a little higher. This is a map from the 20th of May, when that comet will be close to the star, very close in fact, to the star Algol in Perseus, which is here, and that's all fairly pretty much circumpolar there, so it won't actually set at any time in the night probably. It is headed up this way a bit further north as well, but it's not far from the Sun. See there, and it's sort of, if you look for Venus and Mercury setting, that's a good sort of time to start having a look, because the sky will be dark enough to see it there. It has been reported quite bright. Magnitude 5.7 on the 17th of May, which is pretty impressive, so that should be well worth a look. And if you want to again find more information about the comets in the sky, heavens-above.com. You can put your location in. It doesn't really make much difference to where comets are in the sky, because they're very far away. It does make a huge difference for the space station, but you've got information on comets, planets, asteroids and all sorts on that amazing website, so do go and have a look at that. Now then, the last thing I'm going to talk about really. Astronomy does from now on take a little bit of a back seat. Certainly up here in the north, it does not get dark from the end of May until the beginning of August, because the sun is never more than about 6 degrees below the horizon. And there's always this glow to the north. You can see stuff like planets, because that doesn't really matter. You can look out double stars. A lot of people are fans of double stars. My favourite is the obvious one, of course, Beta Cygni, which looks absolutely amazing in a telescope eyepiece, and looking forward to seeing that and more of those. But my favourite thing, actually, it's debatable whether this is astronomy even really, but Noctulucent Clouds. They are part of the Earth's atmosphere. Indeed, they are the highest clouds in the Earth's atmosphere, being just over 50 miles or 80 kilometres above the Earth, right on the edge of space. Ice crystals formed, but some say by dust, and also some say that things like rocket exhausts and meteor dust all play a part in it. And also they do well at troughs like this in the solar cycle. So hoping for a good year on Noctulucent Clouds. See the beautiful shapes that they form there. This is actually lit by the sun from the other side of the Earth. So you're looking in the north after any time after sunset, really, as soon as it gets dark enough, and you may see these bright white clouds coming out of the blue of the sky, and that's these clouds right up here, very high up, high enough up that the sun is illuminating them from the other side of the Earth, whilst not illuminating us because the Earth's in the way. And so that's them. Here's one I took a couple of years ago. This is Noctulucent Clouds above my hometown of Larne, and so this is the F.G. Wilson Caterpillar factory up here. So even the fact that I'm doing this from an urban environment doesn't really detract from the beauty of these amazing clouds. So get out and have a look at those, and keep safe and keep looking up.